great football resume. He was in Canton, Ohio last Saturday night as Kevin Mawae, one of the Tigers that was inducted to the NFL Hall of Fame class, as he gave Coach Archer a shout-out, was in the crowd. Had to be a special moment for you, Coach. Thank you for the time this morning.
Oh, you're very welcome. And it was a very special evening. It was actually a very special weekend because not only was Kevin inducted, but Johnny Robinson was inducted.
Yeah.
And there was a large contingent of LSU fans there, probably only outnumbered by the Denver Broncos because Patrick Bolin, the owner, who died in June, was inducted along with Champ Bailey. So it was great. You know, it's something that, you know, when you've done something for 44 years like I have, and you see the history of the game, and then to have one of your players have the opportunity to go into that company along with another former Tiger, it's very emotional and very special.
We played that Auburn game from '88, and you were on the sidelines, in which such was a magical night for LSU football. We'll talk to you about some of your memories you have from Baton Rouge, but you were at LSU from '84 through '90. 4 of those years you spent as the head coach. Kevin Mawae got to campus during that time period. Do you know, I mean, you mentioned you've coached for 44 years, so many players you've seen come and go. Do you know when you get a special one like Mawae, a guy who goes into the Hall of Fame, do you kind of feel it once you see him for the first time?
Well, you do. I think you do from an ability standpoint, no question. And, you know, when we recruited Kevin the first time, you know, it's funny because when I saw his mom and dad in Canton on Friday night and we talked, his dad said, you know, not bad for a skinny little 230-pound guy. And that's what he was. When Joe Wessel, who recruited him, when we first went into the home in Leesville, he was 6'3.5", 230, 232. We redshirted him in '89, and you know we struggled a little bit in '89, and we almost took the redshirt year off late in the year, and we had many staff meetings. We thought we might play him as a tight end. He started to grow, and we bit the bullet. And then his first start as an LSU Tiger was in Tiger Stadium against Georgia. And he played against a potential first-round pick in Mo Lewis, who was the first-round pick of the Jets. And as Chad Loop, who was there for the ceremony, said, he goes, Mo Harris never got near me or Saul Graves the entire night. Wow. And after that, playing left tackle in your first game in the SEC, you kind of have you have an idea that he's got the ability. But the thing that set Kevin apart from everybody else was after he got in the NFL, and I was in the NFL, and we played him when he was in Seattle, New York, and in Tennessee, and coaching the linebackers at the Steelers, and we had some great linebackers. Whenever they were playing against Kevin, they would always say to me, Coach, why, you know, was he always like this? He always played to the edge. He always played to the whistle, and I said, he's never changed. He's always been that way. And I said, and they always laugh. They go, yeah. But after he knocks you on the ground and he helps you up, he goes, get better. We'll get better next time, you know. And they respected him so much that's the way he played the game, I think is a credit to him and to the guys that coached him both in high school and at LSU.
Where does, as a coach, kind of how gratifying it seeing one of your former players make it to Canton? Like, where you have a very, as Jordy said, a very long football history. Where will this memory rank in there?
It's I have to be honest with you. I'd say it's very close to the top. Probably the only thing that beats it was my first game as the head coach at LSU when we played Texas A&M in College Station and beat them 17-3. I would say it's up there because you know this is something that you know he's immortal, and you know in listening to the 8 or actually the 7 inductees do their speeches, it's very emotional for them. You know, Ed Reed got up there and he was already crying before he got up on the stage. And the one thing that they talked about was, you know, the attitude, their perseverance, their hard work, and the passion for the game. And they had so many people to thank. And there's something that sets apart someone like Kevin. And those 8 people that were inducted have obviously are very special. And he is one person that, as he said, we and the many people that he thanked, we are in the Hall of Fame. Not just me, but all my high school coaches, my college coaches, and my teammates and the people that I've been associated with. And I thought, you know, his speech, I've listened to a lot of speeches, and over the years from the Hall of Fame. I thought his speech was as good as I've ever heard.
Yeah. Never looked down at his notes the entire time, man. I mean, that was very impressive, just from a public speaking point of view.
Hall of Fame speech?
Yeah, it was.
No question. And now they had, there were some cheat sheets out in the audience, but, I never saw him look down at the board. I mean, he had, and he told me he had prepped for it. He spoke from the heart, and I thought that, what's interesting about him was, he thanked the late Jeff Voss. And, he thanked John Purdy, who was our trainer at LSU. He thanked his equipment guy at Leesville. He thanked the people that have been a small part of his success, but they've been there all the way through. He thanked all of his trainers and all of his equipment guys at every level he's been. And not a lot of guys do that. Not everybody that was inducted on Saturday thanked their trainer, their equipment manager. So that speaks very highly of Kevin, I think.
Talking to former LSU head coach Mike Archer here on Off the Bench, 104.5, 100.3, 94.7 ESPN. Mike, a lot of good memories made at LSU, 10 wins in 87, SEC championship in 88. I want to ask you about that earthquake game, though, because that is true LSU lore. Does that stand out to you in the same way that it kind of does in fans' minds?
It does. You tend to forget about it as I've gone on in my coaching and in particular the last 2 years when I was up in Canada. But you get reminded because the TV stations in Baton Rouge or New Orleans or ESPN calls you the week of the Auburn game to get your reaction every year.
Yeah.
It's like clockwork since that time. So it brings back great memories. And, we had a reunion. I think it was in 2013. We had a reunion, and it was great to see the players back. And, I haven't since I've left LSU, it's been over 30 years. And it was special last weekend because probably over 25 of his teammates at LSU were at the induction ceremony. So it was great seeing, Darren Landry and Chad Loop and, Mike Duplantis, Mike Hewitt, Corey White. I mean, that tells you, his friendship with those guys. And, Ken, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Kenny Farrow, who coached him. Yeah. And as Kevin said, Kenny Farrow is the best offensive line coach that no one has ever heard of. And that was probably as true a statement that was made all night because Kenny was a great coach and a great person. And it was good to see him, and I know Kevin enjoyed having him.
Coach Farrow's still mega old school, Coach Archer. I tried to get in touch with him, and his son told me he still doesn't have a cell phone. No cell phone, no computer.
Wow.
That is correct. I found that out. We knew he was there Friday night at the big dinner, the Gold Jacket dinner. There were over 4,000 people, and they had two LSU sections, one on each side of the arena. So I heard he was there. He was not on our side, so I didn't get to see Kenny until Saturday afternoon, and I happened to run into him and Karen and his son Kyle coming from the Hall of Fame, and I saw him, and I said, Kenny, you don't have a cell phone? And Karen just shook her head, and she said, Coach, here is my cell phone. If you have to get a hold of him, here is my number. He's a dinosaur. And I just looked at him, and I said, you got to be kidding me. He goes, nope, I don't have a cell phone. So that's him. That's Kenny. That's the way he is.
So does he still watch VHS
I think
film?
He does. Yeah, he does.
Is that what I heard?
So T-Bob asked you about the 88 earthquake game. Coach, growing up in Baton Rouge, the 87 team to me is still one of my favorite as far as the character goes, whether it was from Hodson or Harvey Williams to Wendell Davis to some of the defensive guys and Eric Hill that you had. You had Andelsack on the offensive line. You guys went 10-1-1, and you were 34 years old as a head coach in Division I college football with maybe the best team in the sport. Take me back to that season. How cool was that year?
That was very special. It was a very special group of men. Because they fought for me to become the head coach when Coach Orensbarger decided to retire, and then he went back as the athletic director at Florida. When all that discussion, we didn't know what was happening. After we beat Tulane and we came in the locker room, I'll never forget this. And I saw BJ and Mary Susan and David in the tunnel at Tiger Stadium, and she had tears, and I knew something was up because we had just beaten our arch rival, and they hoarded us in the weight room, and Bill pulled me aside and said, Mike, I'm going to step down. This is my last game, or the bowl game will be my last game as the head coach at LSU. And that's all he said to me. He never said, I'm going to try and help you get the job. He never said that. He just said, I'm going to step down. And the next morning when Chancellor Ward called me and he said, Mike, would you want this job? And I said, absolutely, I would. I'd like to have the opportunity. So, and those guys went to bat. The late Eric Andelsek, who's an awesome individual, and to see Chris Spielman, who was one of his closest friends with the Detroit Lions, and who did the eulogy at Eric's funeral. That whole group of men. When we were back at the reunion in 2013, it was awesome to see them. They're very special people, and they always will be to me. That's the great thing about coaching, in my opinion, is we all have championship rings and we have bowl watches, but you can't take away the friendships and you can't take away the relationships. Yeah. Those go on forever. And if I pick up the phone, and I call Wendell Davis or I call Verge Osbury, I know they're going to be there for me. And the same thing goes for me. I'll be there for them if they need some. So it was an awesome group of young men who I think the LSU family, and I think the fans can be very proud of the type of young men and what they have turned into as they've gone on into their lives. Their husbands, their dads, their leaders, and they should be very proud of that team.
Still get goosebumps of Spielman and Andelsek midfield in '87 in Tiger Stadium squaring off against each other. That was as fine as a highlight before a game as you'll ever see. Coach, this was cool conversation. Thank you for the time this morning.
I appreciate you having me on. You guys have a great one. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All right, Coach.
There
Take
he
it easy.
is. We'll close it out next.